Right now I'm going to rove that line through that block, just like they did on the real ship. This is a replica of the four-masted barkentine called the Puako, and she was named after one of the Hawaiian towns on the Big Island of Hawaii where they brought sugar back to San Francisco. Now, the Puako was one of a large fleet of about 15 almost identical ships. This photograph is of a four-masted barkentine, and a barkentine is a ship that combines both the square rig type sails as we saw in the clipper ship era and the triangular and rectangular sails that we see from the schooners. The reason that they started eliminating all of the square rigged sails on all of the masts was that it took many less sailors to operate these ships. Fortunately, because of the schematic that I have of the Cocoa Head, I'm able to accurately rig this ship exactly like the real ship was. And the reason that, of course, that they used 2 or 3 of these sets of block and tackle is it would allow just 1 or 2 sailors from down on the deck to pull and have the effect of about 500 pounds of pulling force. This entire fleet of ships was built by a company called Hind, Rolfe and Company. Here's their company flag. Interestingly enough, James Rolfe eventually became mayor of San Francisco and then governor of California. But this is where he got his start, was by starting this empire of sugar ships, which brought raw sugar back from Hawaii to Crockett. Quite exciting for me are some of the personal people photographs that were provided to me that show people on the decks of this actual ship. And by utilizing some of the highly detailed photographs, I was able to replicate many of the details in this model. Captain Helm's wife accompanied him for the 14, 15 years that he was the captain of this ship. And they literally traveled the entire world together, and they even enjoyed a second honeymoon in Hawaii on board the Puako. So this is a great family story, as well as a great story about an unknown, previously unknown fleet of tall ships that called San Francisco their home port. The length of the ship was about 220 feet from stem to stern. Well, this makes this a world-class tall ship. 2 years ago, I uncovered a huge collection of 1,500 glass plate negatives, all of which documented tall ships built on the West Coast. As I started going through the history of those ships, it just astounded me because I realized that I had unearthed the history of ships every bit the equivalent of the big ships that were being built on the East Coast. For some reason, and some reasons that I've been able to unearth so far, none of this history was ever recorded in history books. So history has never credited the West Coast with having the ability to build what are called world-class tall ships. This current discovery adds to that because almost all of the ships in this sugar ship fleet also were 200 to 250 foot long ships. Again, world-class tall ships. This photograph gave me a tremendous opportunity to study all of the details of the ship, which is the reason I've marked up the photograph. But that's allowed me to completely recreate the ship exactly as she looked. To give you an example, I was able to find out exactly how many stanchions there are holding this handrail by counting them. So I was able to replicate that. I'm able to count exactly how many steps on the ladders. There we go. It takes me roughly about 1,200 hours to scratch build a ship like the Puako. All right, right now I'm rigging the 3 pulleys that are going to support the mizzen boom. And the fun part about building these ships is that you actually get to replicate exactly how the real ships were rigged and operated. One of the models that I'm best known for is the boat model that's used in the famous movie called The Bodyguard. Another film that I'm fairly well known for is the movie Hook, the children's pirate movie Hook with Robin Williams. In all of the far shots, they used ship models of the pirate ships. Well, I built all of those models for that particular movie. Since I've posted my website, tallshipsofsanfrancisco.com, a couple of years ago, I've started hearing from people not only all over the United States, but all over the world. I contacted the National Archives to see if they could find any other information on this ship for me. Lo and behold, they found the actual logbooks of the Puako. Occurrences like people being lost at sea, people being murdered at sea, which were very common in the 1800s, actually continued right up onto the 1900s. And all of this is detailed in these logbooks. Believe it or not, the results of the Puako came again from people wanting to share the family history of their West Coast built tall ships with the world. And for some reason, I've become the conduit through which a lot of people want to get that information out to the world.